Yes, lads, hope you're all doing super well. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the under-23 goalkeepers available for this upcoming new European season on Sorare. Hope you enjoy the video. Leave a like if you do, and if you are new around here, please do consider subscribing. That's the intro out of the way, lads. Let's get into things. Whether you're completely new to Sorare or you've been playing for a while but haven't yet played the under-23 category on Sorare, you obviously need an under-23 keeper. But the goalkeepers, a funny one. They're the most expensive card as far as position goes, and they're the most annoying because, you know, all they really do is either get you clean sheets or don't. And if you don't get a clean sheet, then, you know, you're obviously asking for good all-around score, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. So we're just going to be reviewing the goalkeepers that are available for this upcoming new European season. I'm not including the Asian keepers, the MLS keepers, the South American keepers in this. We've filtered from highest price to lowest. But my strategy with goalkeepers has always been, you know, take as little risk as possible. I'm skipping ahead as far as, you know, mention all these names here. But, you know, for example, right now, Bart Verbruggen. I am actually an owner of his card right now. I bought him whilst he was at Anderlecht, and I've kept him, you know, since he's moved to Brighton. You know, he just recently moved to Brighton, £20 million move. But Brighton have Jason Steele, who's, you know, had a really good season last year. You know, he's 32, so he's, you know, getting on a bit, maybe not for a goalkeeper, but for a footballer. The manager there, you know, really likes him, and, you know, Bart's probably not going to go into this season being number one, even though his price is priced at a card, you know, similar to maybe for Gavin Bazanu, for example, who has already played the first game for Southampton, so he looks to be number one as far as things have started out for this season. And, you know, you can pick up a Verbruggen right now for £80 on floor price, and you can pick up a Gavin Bazanu for £88. I know which one I would be trying to buy if, you know, I was looking for an under-23 goalkeeper. You know, there's just less risk involved with the Bazanu. Like, there's just no need to take that risk with Bart. And I'm somebody that owns both of them. So, you know, I'm not biased in any way. I just think there's less chance of Bart Verbruggen starting this season for Brighton than there is Gavin Bazanu starting for Southampton, because he's already started, like, the first game. It's done. So, and, you know, they won the game. Yeah, he didn't keep a clean sheet, but the chances are he's probably going to keep his place until something crazy happens. Something crazy might not happen, but, and don't get me wrong, this is just my opinion. Like, Bart might start for Brighton this first game of the season against Luton. Who knows? But if we look on Play Sharper, the experts over here seem to think the same. You know, Jason Steele's 80%. Likely to start. Bart Verbruggen's at 20, which is probably fair, I think, you know, going into this season. Don't get me wrong, Bart Verbruggen might take over Jason Steele at halfway, you know, in the season. You just never know. He could play the Europa League games. Nobody knows. That's kind of just, unfortunately, the nature of the beast. But yeah, under 23 keepers, it's a landmine, lads. I've tried to include in this list, or this watch list, sorry, on Sorare Data, all the goalkeepers that are either, you know, number one starting goalkeepers, or a couple that might be on the fringes of becoming a starter. For example, you know, Bart Verbruggen. But starting things off with Costa, you know, most expensive keeper by a fine margin, to be fair. So £171 floor price compared to the next most expensive, which is 133, Lucas Chevalier for Lille. And yeah, I mean, he's 23, so he's only got one more year left of under 23 eligibility. I'm a Costa owner. I've had his rare card for a little while now. It kind of makes sense. Like, he probably is playing on the best team of all the under 23 goalkeepers that are available. So, you know, and he's, you know, he gets clean sheets more often than not. You know, you have a look at Porto's sort of win record here. They hadn't lost a game in, like, what's that, 11, 12 games. And I know he's not always getting a clean sheet, but for the most part, they normally do. The only issue with Costa is, for them, you know, he doesn't really get great AA scores. There's a 19 AA here from him, but other than that, you know, they're normally, you know, 3 to, you know, or 0 to 10 basically in that sort of AA range. In the Champions League, he did pretty well against Inter. I think, yeah, what's that, 20 AA there, which is really good. But, you know, and they're in a loss to Inter in the first leg. He got a 17 AA, obviously didn't get the clean sheet. So, you know, with Costa, you are buying quality at the end of the day. You pay for what you get, and for the most part, you do get, you know, green scores. You do get clean sheets for them, you know, for the majority of the time you're going to own him. And obviously he plays, you know, for his country as well, which is great, because, you know, when international football comes around, you always have a goalkeeper in Costa that plays for a really good team in obviously Portugal. He's the obvious choice. Like, if somebody came to me now and said, Harry, I have an unlimited budget to play under 23s, who's my goalkeeper? Costa's going to be in that, you know, top 3 for me, easy. It depends on age, because like I said, he only has a year left of eligibility. If you're looking for somebody maybe a bit more for the future and maybe not for the present, then, you know, Chevalier Van der Voort, maybe Trubin would come into that question. But right now, if you're saying, I'm playing under 23s this season on Sorare, I just want the best keeper. Costa is that for me, and the price kind of reflects it. As a negative with him, it is obviously the age. You only get one more season. He's under 23 until 2024, where a lot of these other keepers like Chevalier, Trubin, and Van der Voort, which we'll get into, do have, more utility. They're only 21, 22. And they have, extra years. But Chevalier, an unbelievable goalkeeper. I was lucky enough to watch him live last season against the GOAT, against PSG, where Messi actually scored a free kick. He actually conceded 3 goals in that game. But he is an unbelievable goalkeeper, like future French #1 for me. Under 23 until 2026. Playing on a decent enough team. Lille are in the Europa Conference League qualification round, so that's probably priced into his price a little bit. There's no guarantee that they get Conference League, of course. But again, you look at the last sort of year, there's not that many clean sheets. There's a couple of good scores in here. When I say good, I mean like these 80s, which is really nice. A clean sheet and some nice AA game. He did play for the French under-21 team this summer in the Euro under-21s. Somebody that, is playing on a weaker team, quote-unquote harder league. Porto playing in Portugal is much easier than Lille playing in the French league as far as, how good they are in that league. They finished 5th last year. So, you can't expect clean sheets all the time with him. Maybe like, with Costa, unless they're playing Benfica, Braga, or Sporting, you're kind of expecting a clean sheet with Acosta. But here, it's not going to be as frequent, and you just have to be okay with that. He went on a nice streak here, actually, at the start of the season. Yeah, 16 AA, 19 AA, 19 AA. So, he has more to do at Lille than Costa does at Porto, as far as, shots saved and stuff. So, you're going to get a better AA keeper in Chevalier, but, is he going to keep as many clean sheets? Probably not. And what's the most important thing for me? Obviously, both. You want a keeper that can keep clean sheets and get good AA score. But if you're taking one over the other, it has to be clean sheets for me, because you get that positive decisive. So it takes your score from 35 flat to 60, and then any AA all-round score on top of that, gets added on. But a great keeper, don't get me wrong, and somebody that I think will have a great season with Lille. Trubin's up next, who's just recently moved to Benfica, which is one of the most interesting sort of moves this summer as far as under-23 keepers go. It only happened over the last few days, so it does say he still plays for Shakhtar, but it's Here We Go by Fabrizio Romano. The only issue I have with the Trubin situation is he going to start for Benfica? Benfica still have Odysseus in goals right now, the Greek goalkeeper. I just don't know if he's going to be displaced. The only thing I can see happening is if he moves club. If he does move, because there was rumours of Saudi for a little while, but they died down a little bit. Bayern Munich are looking for a goalkeeper. I know, Ruli's been linked with that as well. So we don't know what's happening right now. It's up in the air. Trubin has the capabilities to be one of the best goalkeepers as far as under-23s go, for the next couple of years, if he gets that #1 spot at Benfica, which I expect him to get at some point. I just don't know when that point is going to be. Is it this season? Is Odysseus going to leave? Who knows? That is like, one of those things, comes back to what I first started speaking about, risk. Like, if I have, not an unlimited pot of money, but say if I have £150 to go get a limited goalkeeper right now, I wouldn't be going to buy Trubin, like if I'm talking about de-risking, because I just don't know if he's going to start. Like, I'd rather go buy a Lucas Chevalier or Martin Van der Voort, who I know is going to start for Genk, or even a Gavin Bazanu, that's £88. Like, I would prefer to do that because it's just safer, in my opinion, than going to buy a Trubin. Maybe the long term, like if you're willing to wait it out and be patient, then Trubin could be literally the best under-23 goalkeeper. I have no doubts about that at Benfica, because Benfica are a massively dominant team, similar to Costa is at Porto. And you can expect Trubin to get, Costa-like numbers in that league, because, Benfica and Porto are the most dominant teams in that league, alongside Sporting. So it's an interesting one. I wouldn't be buying a Trubin right now unless I already had goalkeepers. Like, I already have a Costa. Maybe I could buy Trubin for like backup in that sense, as far as, gallery depth goes, which isn't a bad thing. But if I only had the chance to buy one goalkeeper right now, under 23, I just couldn't buy Trubin, because I just don't know what's going to happen with their goalkeeper situation. But don't get me wrong, an unbelievable goalkeeper. Martin Van der Voort is moving to Leipzig next summer, I believe. So he has one more year at Genk. They've started the season pretty well. They've been in the Champions League qualification. They actually lost to Servette on pens, actually. So they now go down to the Europa League qualifiers, I believe. But they did lose this weekend, actually, to UPenn, which was really, really interesting. I think they did rotate a little bit for that. But before that, they did get a clean sheet away from home at 21 AA. That's kind of the good thing with Van der Voort. If he does get a clean sheet, it tends to come with quite a bit of AA. And even if he doesn't get a clean sheet, he's averaging 14, 14, 13, 13. Okay, had a bit of a stinker here. He conceded 3. 21 AA, 21, 17, 10, minus 0.1, 18, 10. Like, he is averaging a lot more AA than maybe a Costa would, because he is just busier. The Belgium league is just a busier league as far as, shots conceded and stuff. But when he does get a clean sheet like here, he gets that 16 AA on top. Those dark green, 75 pluses is kind of what you want. 27 AA with a clean sheet away to Anderlecht. So to be hitting really, really high scores and to be in that sort of top 10 in a leaderboard, maybe in under 23 limited, the chances are the goalkeeper's done really well. He's got a clean sheet, and he's probably got like a 22 AA or a 27 AA. He's probably hit 80 plus for the most part. That's not always the case, but a lot of the time that is the case. We've spoken about the Bart situation. It's up in the air. I'm a Bart owner, so I am biased, but gun to my head, I don't think he starts the season as number 1, and that's just my brutal honest opinion. But he's an unbelievable goalkeeper. Like, if you've watched him play, you'll know there's a reason why Brighton have paid 20 million for him. They obviously want him to become number 1 at some point, and I think that'll happen. But when that point is, I have no clue, unfortunately, lads. And that's just the nature of the beast. We have to just see all this plan out. Gavin Baznu, though, interesting one again. I am an owner of his card. I've owned him for the last couple of months. Because you could foresee Southampton being relegated, and he started the season number 1. Like I said, they won 2-1. They didn't get a clean sheet. He didn't get much AA either, I don't believe, which is, it kind of is what it is. So they started the season against Sheffield Wednesday. You got 3.4 AA. Really unlucky, actually. He had nothing to do. Southampton completely dominated that game, and they conceded from a set piece, which was really annoying. But under 23 until 2026, he's an Ireland international. And for me, like, when I'm looking at this top 6 here, I'm seeing Barverbruggen and Trubin, who are like, situations are unclear. I'm seeing Chevalier and Van der Voort at the next best thing as far as like 21-year-olds go, and then I'm seeing Costa as like the creme de la creme, but a little bit older as far as prices go, and as far as how good the team he plays on. And then I'm looking at Gavin Baznu at £88 floor price, playing for Southampton, who will be one of the more dominant teams in the Championship this year. And they're going to have a lot of midweeks. The Championship is unforgiving as far as fixtures. They play, Saturday, Tuesday, or Sunday, Tuesday a lot of the time. Well, they have 2 games a week for the most part, when the Champions League and the Europa League group stages start to kick in. And, on those midweeks, where, Costa's maybe playing away to Man United or in the Champions League, or there's some really tough fixtures ongoing, Gavin Baznu might be at home to Cardiff. That's probably an easy enough fixture. Mind you, Cardiff are actually a little bit better this year. I'm from Cardiff myself, so that's why I'm using that analogy. But, Southampton are going to be pretty dominant in this league, and I am just quite surprised to see that, Baznu's price is below £100 maybe, comparing it to like, your Chevaliers and Van der Voorts. I think that is an interesting price point to have him at. There is risk. Like last year, he played 32 games in the Premier League and then got dropped, not out of nowhere, because he wasn't amazing in the Premier League, don't get me wrong. Still a young goalkeeper, first time playing at like the top flight of English football, and mistakes were made. He's a young keeper, they're going to happen, but when you're fighting relegation, you can't really afford those to happen. And McCarthy came in and took over for the last couple of games. So maybe that is maybe priced into this £88. I still think it's a really interesting price point for a goalkeeper that does have, midweeks. The next sort of set of cards is Diouf, Atibolo, and Aldemar. Aldemar is on loan at Troyes in the French League 2 from Stade Rennes. I think he's already started the season as number 1 as far as I'm aware. I don't think he got a clean sheet. Yeah, they conceded 2 goals, 6 AA. I mean, this is where we're getting into that, that sort of list of goalies where, like, it's the £60 or less is the best way to describe it. Like, there's a gap, isn't it? You got £171 Costa, you got the 130 region as far as, the Chevalier, Trubin and Van der Voort go. And then you got, Verbruggen and Baznu are fighting it out in like the £80 region. And this is where I'm referring to limited prices here. And then we've got like the 60s and 50s. You've got Atibolo, who should be number 1 this season for Freiburg, who are a good side. They're a good side in the Bundesliga. He wasn't number 1 last season, but Mark Flecken has recently moved, I think, to Brentford, which kind of unlocks Atibolo as Freiburg's number 1. And if we have a look at their sort of results last year, I mean, they were a good side. Like, they weren't terrible. They were pretty good for keeping clean sheets. Clean sheet against Wolfsburg here, Schalke, against Cologne. They obviously lost games. Lost Bayern Munich 1-0, which is quite respectable, to be fair. And I think they were playing in the Europa League as well last year. So, again, a mixed bag. Like, you can't expect clean sheets every game week. You can't expect that for anyone. But especially, Freiburg playing in the Bundesliga. There's goals everywhere in the Bundesliga. And, I don't know what to expect with Atabolo too much as far as, this is his first time being number one. How is he going to sort of, climatize and stuff? It's going to be interesting to see that play out. But again, that plays into the risk thing. Like, do I want to take the risk on that? It might pay off. He might be great. Don't get me wrong, but nobody knows. We're going into the unknown with that situation. Doof was actually really, really good last year for Reims, who had like the record for clean sheets. Like, there's some really, really good scores in Doof's last season. They did start. Well, they ended the season actually pretty bad on this sort of stretch of games, but before that there was way more clean sheets, and when he was getting clean sheets, he was getting those dark green scores, those 27 AAs, 21 AAs, 16 AAs. He was a lot better at getting those high-end scores which were needed to win prizes. And at that price, it seems pretty respectable to bring in a Doof. I think he's only got one more year left of under 23 eligibility, similar to Costa. Comparing Doof to Atabolo, obviously there's a couple years in it as far as like utility goes. Atabolo's a bit younger. If I had to bet, I think Doof probably ends up getting better scores than Atabolo does this season. That's just going off what happened last season with Stade Reims and Atabolo being a newer goalkeeper. It's the unknown. We don't know. Next set of players is Christian Fuchs Slonina, who just recently moved on loan from Chelsea to UPenn. So this is, well, it says he still plays for Chelsea, but he has moved on loan as far as I'm aware to UPenn, who aren't a great team, if I'm being honest, in the Belgium league. I don't think Slonina is worth it this year. It's good if you've owned him for a while and now he has utility in that sense, but I wouldn't be going out to buy a Slonina. That's just my personal opinion. Take it with a pinch of salt. Like I said, it's not financial advice. This is just my opinion on these goalkeeper situations. I'm trying to give it as openly as possible. I am a Lebrovic owner, so I own Lebrovic's Super Rare. They've started the season really, really well. He plays for Rijeka in the Croatian league, and as you can see, he's done really, really well so far. The only thing missing from his scores so far is those, in that second game, of course, it was the clean sheet. If he got a clean sheet in that game, he's on 90 points, or 91.7 points, which would have been, exceptional before bonus. So, but even before that, last season, there's some really decent scores, 85s, 80, 82. He is capable of hitting, those peak scores for goalkeepers. This is the perfect example. 1-0 at home, 24.8 AA, and then 60 obviously for the clean sheet, which gets you the 84.8. Those are the scores needed, to hit those really nice prizes basically on the podiums and in the top 10s. And under 23 until 2024, so again, he's in that Costa range. He only has one more year left, similar to Fruchel as well. So that's probably why he's at maybe a 50 pounder. If he maybe had another year, I think he'd probably be maybe at that 80 to 100 pounds. He's an objectively a good goalie. I'm obviously going to be biased. I own one of his cards, but again, I think he's a decent shout. Christian Fruchel playing in the Austrian league. He also has 1 year left. Last year, just not many good scores, if we're being completely honest. A 78 to look at. This season, though, since we've restarted, so from game week 392, got a clean sheet in the first game, but that was in a Conference League playoff, I believe, or Europa League playoff. They lost it then to Sturm Graz 3-0, which is obviously not ideal. Then didn't keep a clean sheet in the away leg of that qualifier, but did 16 AA is respectable. And then they did win 2-0 away from home, and he saved a penalty and got a clean sheet. So he got double decisive and a great all-round score, which almost got him to that perfect 100, which is a really good start. Fair play. Like, that 94 is the best score he's got since ever. If you have a look at these stats, so since he's always since he's got into that side, 94 is the highest score he's ever had by a big margin. Before that, it was only 78. So going off last season, I wouldn't look at this and be like, yeah, this is a good under 23 goalkeeper to have. But he started off the season pretty respectably, already peaked as far as getting that 94 in there. So it'd be interesting to see how this plans out. But you look at last season, they did concede 3 goals a lot of the time, and that is just always very hard to come back from as far as scores go. So, I wouldn't look at Fruchel personally and be like, wow, I'd want to go out and buy him. I think he's going to be great. In the next row, we have Nicholas Heidel, Cavallina, and Tobias Lowell. Tobias Lowell, £43, Cavallina, £46 floor, and Heidel very similar. Heidel has 2 years left, I believe, so he's under 23 until 2025. Again, one of those where, the Austrian league always seems to produce goals. You look at his last year, there's some decent scores in there. There's no peaks, which is, there's nothing above 72, which is a worry. Don't get me wrong, it is a worry. But if my goalkeeper was getting 72 every week, I would definitely take it, but no goalkeeper does, of course. Again, similar to Christian Fuchs, they just seem to concede goals in the Austrian league. And Cavallina is playing for Lokomotiv Zagreb. I am trying to, speed this up a little bit. I am noticing this video is going to become pretty long-winded, but somebody where, on first glance, I'm seeing peak scores. I'm seeing 100, I'm seeing 96, I'm seeing 87, and that is always, very welcomed. He hasn't really started off the season very well, if we're being honest, and neither have his club. They haven't won a game yet. He got an error led to goal last game, which is obviously not ideal, which has probably brought his price down. Last season, he did do pretty well. There were some interesting games where, there is a couple of error led to goals, and we've already seen one this season already. So there's always risk with these goalkeepers, and under 23 until 2026, goalkeepers of that age are going to make mistakes. I guess the price kind of reflects that. Like at £45, he's at the lower end of these under 23 goalkeepers, and if you're willing to take the risk on a couple of these, then I can kind of understand why. They're not going to be good every game week, because that's just the nature of football. Lau's been pretty decent since coming into this last side. He's only under 23 until 2024, so again, similar to Costa. There's not much data to go off here. He only got into the side at the end of last season, game week 376 here, where saw him get a really good score of 80, and then we started the season game week 393 here. Did get a really good AA score here in a 1-0 draw at home, 28.7 all-round score, which is great. They did lose this most recent game 2-0 though to Sturm Graz, where he only got an 8.3 AA. But yeah, again, Austrian league is unforgiving. There always seems to be goals in that league, and you just want to be on the better end of it. And it's an interesting one to try and navigate. And then brings us to our last row of goalkeepers, which is Ivar Pandor, Yaya Fafana, and Lavaro Magic, who plays for Istra in the Croatian league, which we'll go to first. I think he's got 1 more year of eligibility. He's at the cheaper end of things, £34 for a limited. Last year, scored really, really well. Some nice peak scores, 93s, 82s, 80s, 79. Some really decent AA scores, as well as getting those clean sheets. He had an AA average of 8 over the last year. If we go to 6 months, 8.7, so it increases a little bit. Hasn't started the season very well at all, lads. Istra have been horrendous. They lost 6-0 to Rijeka, just obviously not ideal at all. Lost 3-0 to Zagreb and drew the first game of the season against Lokomotiv Zagreb, which saw him get a respectable 11.9 in a 1-0 draw. But last couple of games, I always say goalkeepers are only as good as the defense in front of them. If you've got a horrendous defense, then you're just going to concede goals as a goalkeeper, lads. It's just as simple as that. So, as good as these goalkeepers are individually, I always look at how good the defense is. And, are they capable of keeping clean sheets? Istra don't look like that so far, which is kind of why his prices, probably, I guess it's plummeted a little bit. If we look at price graph, we'll go limited. I mean, it hasn't changed too much. You go 3 months. I guess it hasn't really, what was he? He was at like £56 not too long ago, and now he's at like 32. So he's almost halved in the last month. If we go last week, he was selling for like, £50 a week ago, and now he's down to 35. So, game week to game week, there is going to be, fluctuations in prices. He just lost 6-0. Like that's really not a good sign, is it? I know it's not him that's lost, it's the team, but it clearly reflects in his score, which is, not a great thing. Yaya Fafana plays for Angers in the French League 2. They got demoted or, relegated last year. He started off the season okay. 14 AA in his first game. They did lose that game, 1-0. He was in number 1 for the majority of last season, so there's not much data, as far as, how he did last year. Yeah, under 23 until 2025, £39 for a limited. I'll be honest, I'm no expert in the French second division, so I don't know what to expect as far as how well Angers are going to be in that league. His floor price is a lot higher than his last traded price, which is £38. He's now at £53. So, people expected him to maybe, go well this season and obviously, be number 1. But I'm not here to pretend I'm an expert in that French second division. And yeah, the fact that, he wasn't number 1 last year, so there's not much data to go off in that sense. But last but not least, Ivan Pandor, who's been around for a long time. He's just recently signed permanently with Fortuna Sittard in the Eredivisie. Their season starts this weekend. Under 23 until 2024, so you've got a year left in him. And, he was on loan there last year. There's some decent peak scores. 82, 88, 80, 79, some 70s in there, lower 70s. He was involved in the Croatian under-21 lineup for this summer's tournament. But prior to that, like I said, on loan at Fortuna. Goalkeeper that is capable of hitting good AA scores. We saw in the last game of the season against NEC, 25 AA in a 1-1 draw. Before that, they went on a bit of a poor run of form, to be honest. Fortuna conceding 3 goals, conceding 2. Conceding 2, did get a clean sheet here against Vitesse. Conceding 3, conceding 4 against Ajax. And that's just the nature of matchups, right? Fortuna aren't a dominant team in the Eredivisie. Like, there's a reason why, an Ivan Pandor and all these players at the bottom of this sort of watch list are at the price they're at, because they just don't play on dominant sides. There's a reason why Costa is up here. It's because he's playing on one of the best teams in his league, if not the best team. So he is going to be more expensive because he just has a better chance of clean sheets. That's just the brutality of it. The other way to look at that is, okay, you could spend £171 on a Costa and you've got one under-23 goalkeeper, no matter who they play. So if they play, Benfica away, you have to play him, for example, right? Where he's probably not going to get a clean sheet. Or do you go down here and buy 4 under-23 keepers and buy an Ivan Pandor, a Cavallina, for example, a Lowell, and maybe a Labrovic, for the same price, roughly, like £180, let's say. And then you just play the matchups. You play who has the best matchup that weekend. Sorry, are they at home? Do they have an easy fixture? If you've got 4 goalkeepers, the chances are one of them are going to have a decent matchup every game week. So you just rotate in the best matchup that game week, and hope that they have obviously a clean sheet and stuff. Where, if you buy one Costa card, you have to just live with what he has. For the most part, yeah, he's going to have great matchups because they're a good team in that league. They are going to play Sporting away. They are going to play Sporting at home. Benfica at home. Benfica away. Braga at home. Braga away. Where they're not expected to keep clean sheet. Or Costa isn't expected to probably keep a clean sheet because they're tough matchups. So it all depends on what your risk appetite is, really. And if you enjoy having the luxury of having multiple goalkeepers to choose from. Or are you happy with just sticking with one goalkeeper and just riding him out no matter what the matchup is? It'll be interesting to see what your opinion is on that and how you see that as a newcomer, or if you've been playing the game for a while. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, lads. I hope it has given you better context on under-23 goalkeepers. There is going to be more under-23 goalkeepers emerging over the season. Ajax have a similar situation to the Trubin situation right now. They've just signed a goalkeeper from Frankfurt. Who knows if he's going to become number 1 if Rulli leaves. Like I said, there's risk involved. There's rotations. We just don't know what's going to happen. And right now in this video, all I've tried to do is present to you what I see as, the goalkeeper realm for the under-23s this season, or for this European season. You do with that information what you will. I'm just presenting it to you. It's up to you to make your own decisions and make your minds up on, if you want to buy a card, if you don't want to buy a card, if you fancy him or you don't fancy him. That's all completely up to you. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, please do leave it a like. And hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great game week. And I shall see you guys in the next video.